So everybody that's listening to us, if it's on the podcasting sites, please subscribe, share this interview. We have an amazing guest today. If you're listening to us on the radio on one of our 20 stations, we appreciate that. Definitely email the stations if you can, if you do have a moment, and tell them that you really do enjoy our show. We interview people about all sorts of topics. You probably will not be listening to this. Well, I'll be honest, you will not be listening to this on YouTube for sure because they've censored so many damn things that I put up there. Uh, I'll get kicked off if I put one more, interview up like this. So we're gonna keep it plain and Jane up there. But regardless of that, this will be on other podcasting sites. We have Stella Paul. You can find her at Stella Paul NY, and that's for Twitter. She's got a lot of good information. If you want to follow her, Brownstone Institute, you can look her up there. Great website, a lot of good articles. She's a writer for this. She's put out 2 good articles on COVID-19. We're going to be strictly be discussing hospital protocols during COVID-19 and also the COVID-19 vaccine and the death that's come about. That I shouldn't even call a vaccine. I'm even sorry to say that still. It was a shot. It was a bioweapon. I think calling it a vaccine is not right. It's incorrect. So we're not going to use that. It was a shot. It was a bioweapon. But let's introduce Stella. Stella, thanks so much for coming on our program today, and we greatly appreciate having you.
Well, I am so happy to be here. I'm so happy that you're interested in this topic. I'd like to share with your audience. I know you want to talk about my own story and how I lost my husband, but just to get people introduced to the topic, I'd like to talk about what went on in the hospitals during COVID. You mentioned there's a lot of talk about the vaccines, their impact, talk about the mandates that you had to get it, about the lockdowns and the terrible effects of that. And we need much more talk, debate, and investigations on all of those. But what there isn't really any talk is about what happened in the hospitals. And unless you had a loved one in the hospitals and you saw this for yourself, and I hope, God willing, I hope this didn't happen to anybody who's listening, but many people had their families shattered by brutal things that went on in the hospitals. That hasn't been talked about. So I have made this my personal mission to listen to anybody, to talk to anybody who will listen to me about what happened in the hospitals during COVID.
And I want to go in depth about these hospital protocols. We can start off on remdesivir. I know you just wrote an article, and we'll get into that a little bit later about why the hospitals are still using remdesivir. You can go to the Brownstone Institute, or you can even go on Stella's Twitter handle. Again, it's Stella Paul NY on Twitter, and she does have that article up. I think it's a great read for people that are interested in this topic. And I know a lot of people listening are vaccine injured or do have families, as you stated, Stella, that have been torn apart due to the nonsense, the real sick, mentally sick stuff that went on throughout this COVID-19 crisis of the past 3 years. But let's talk about those hospital protocols, Stella, because it's not only the remdesivir, it's also the ventilators. And then, after that, it was the doctors that were making extreme amounts of money off putting people on ventilators, off putting people, and putting that remdesivir inside people. So just go through all that stuff because a lot of people don't know the whole story.
So let's introduce people to the topic because most people have no idea what the heck happened or why it happened. And let me just start by saying everything I'm going to describe about this protocol is still happening. So it's not just, we're not talking about history. Gee, this is what happened these last few years. If, God forbid, you get COVID and go to the hospital, this is what will still happen now, even to a baby 1 month old. So this is current, and the information that I'm giving you is valuable to the point of possibly saving your life or the life of somebody you love. We don't have as much COVID now. You don't hear about it as much, but this protocol is still on the books. What's the protocol? Well, let's begin at the beginning. Why have a protocol? This particular COVID emergency was unlike any other medical situation we've ever had, where the federal government said to the hospitals, we're going to pay you enormous amounts of money if you treat COVID exactly the way we tell you to treat it. This was all paid for by the CARES Act in 2020, which allocated $2 trillion, and billions of that went to the hospitals. And in fact, the hospital executives began paying themselves a minimum of $10 million a year during these glorious COVID years when the federal government was pouring money at them. But the catch with all the sweet government money was you had to do it their way. So let's look at what they were subsidizing. If you were admitted to the hospital with COVID, the hospital got a bonus from the federal government. Why? What business is it of the federal government if you come in with a heart attack or with a stroke or with some, you're having some kind of medical emergency or COVID? Why a bonus for COVID? Why is that so important for your taxpayer money to go for COVID diagnosis? So people were getting put in there with all these, all these other things. They might have come in from a car accident and they're admitted with COVID. Why? Because there was extra money on the entire bill, right? Then if you were hospitalized with COVID, right, not just diagnosed at the hospital, if you were hospitalized, the hospital got a boost on the entire bill if you had COVID. So everything's being incentivized. It's more COVID, more COVID, more COVID. Then if you were given remdesivir, which we're going to talk about, the hospital got a 20% boost on the entire hospital bill. So they wouldn't pay for these other drugs like ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, which were safe and effective and cost about $3. They who's going to make money from that? Plus it works, Right. So instead, the super expensive drug, remdesivir, which was known to be toxic to the kidneys, it caused kidney failure. It had been tried in a trial with people with Ebola. It had to be called off because it killed 53% of them. It's a toxic medication. And yet this was the one that NIH, the National Institutes of Health, the FDA said, nope, this is our drug. This is the drug we're going with, the one that killed 53% of the Ebola patients. That's the drug, and that's the only drug. And so if at a minimum it was known to be toxic to kidneys, you show up in the hospital and you've got kidney problems, doesn't matter. You're going on remdesivir. There's no differentiation between this 70-year-old man with severe diabetes and this, incredibly healthy 21-year-old and this 35-year-old on dialysis. Everybody's treated the same way, remdesivir, right? And so, do you want to jump in and make a comment?
Yeah, I just have a question because I have
Yes.
a family. I wouldn't say he's a family friend. He's a friend. I interviewed him on this program before. He's a pastor over in Georgia, and his daughter played soccer at the University of Florida. He used to play basketball at the University of Alabama back in the day. He's about in his 40s, 50s. He's in real good shape. He got COVID. They put him on a ventilator
Right.
rather. This was in Georgia for weeks. And
Right.
I think he got the remdesivir too. I'm thinking obviously, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously I don't know about all the nits and crannies of what went on. You know more than I do. That I'm sure he got the remdesivir before they put him on the ventilator then.
Right. Right.
So I'm thinking if this guy is physically fit and he's taking this remdesivir that's got a 53% kill rate, and then they put him on the ventilator, which could
Yes.
really mess you up. And this
Yes.
guy almost died. He ended up
he
staying
lived.
alive. Yeah, he
Oh my
lived,
gosh, that's a
but
miracle.
I,
It is.
and I talked to him after that, and he said he had all these hallucinations and weird dreams. And I'm thinking, God knows between the remdesivir and the ventilator and whatever the heck else they put in him, God knows what was inside his body, and he's lucky to be alive for sure.
Well, you talked about the ventilator. Once again, the federal government was in there saying, hey guys, if you put them on ventilators, we're going to give you a big bonus. We're going to pay you so much more money if you ventilate them. What business is it of the federal government to be in that room with that patient, your friend, this sports, this athlete, this particular man with his family who loved him and his medical conditions, and the doctor, and the federal government is in there saying, ventilate him, ventilate him, ventilate him, ventilate him. Why? Why? And so let me just take you quickly through what the protocol was. Again, this is all in place. The federal government, let me just jump ahead. The medical emergency that the federal government had declared was deemed to be over at the end of the day, May 11th, 2023. Still active in the morning. In the morning of May 11th, you were in huge danger. But by the end of the day, the federal government said you're okay. All right. But these subsidies that we're talking about, these payouts on remdesivir and ventilation and being admitted into the hospital with COVID, and best of all, you get a big bonus if people die of COVID in the hospital. Not if you save them. Not the government doesn't pay you to save them. The bonus comes if they die in the hospital of COVID. Then you get a big bonus on the hospital bill. But that's all still in effect till September 30th, 2023. I see you looking a little quizzical. That happens to be the end of the fiscal year. So the government has assigned itself, it has the right and the ability to keep giving you this lethal treatment till the end of the fiscal year. Then, okay, then they'll change.
Well, Stella, I was told that, you brought this up just a couple of seconds ago, that there was people that they were saying that died of COVID and died with COVID. So they might have died in a car accident. Maybe they had COVID-19 in their body, but it wasn't from the virus. It was because they got in a car accident and died. But regardless,
that is in the bonus that if the patient dies with COVID, not necessarily of COVID, the hospital gets a bill. So that's right. You come in with a car accident, they test you for COVID, you died with COVID, and there's a whole boost. And let me just continue this through because you'll see the entire sick nature of this. They paid a boost to the coroner. Once they killed you, we haven't even described yet all the ways they kill you because we've discussed remdesivir and ventilation, but we've left some of the tortures out. But once they've successfully killed you and you show up on the slab in the coroner's office, the coroner gets a boost if he says you died of COVID.
it's insane. But who's to say that they could just be fudging this up?
They
Well,
are.
I'm sure they were fudging
They
this up.
are. That's the point. The point. And then let me continue with, we
Sure.
haven't talked about my situation, but
No, not yet.
but how much time do we have? There's so much
We
to
got plenty
say.
of time, and I do want to get this out to the viewers again. Stella Paul, if you follow, you should be following her. If you're not, I should say Stella Paul NY on Twitter. Definitely check her out, and the articles are up there. Brownstone Institute, you can check out her articles. But go ahead, Stella. We got a lot of good questions for you, but I do want to get to the bottom of this. I think this is very important information.
It is important information, and I'm so sorry that this hasn't been brought to you by mainstream media all along so that people could be making informed choices and people could be lobbying for change and to get out of their loved ones out of this horrible situation. But this has all been kept under wraps. And I was at the so as we said, we started when you showed up in the emergency room and they tested you and they got paid to test you and they got paid to admit you with COVID and all these things through the coroner's slab when he was paid to diagnose your death causes as COVID. And then the families got paid off. The families got paid off to shut up because if they got letters from FEMA, I got a letter from FEMA saying that if your loved one died of COVID, if you can get a doctor to sign to that effect, we'll pay for the funeral.
Wow. And that's big money, obviously. And then there's a lot of people that, America's full of people that don't have a lot of money due to COVID-19 and losing their jobs and stuff. They're telling people that if they shut up, they'll pay for the funeral, all the expenses that go with that. I mean, that's quite a
Well,
bit of
well,
cash.
or they didn't even die of COVID. My husband's
Right.
I'll just very briefly say what happened to my husband. I won't go into it too much because then I'll start to cry. And so, you know,
Yeah.
so I'll just tell you, he was living in a nursing home in New York City,
Hmm.
and where the governor forced COVID patients inside. I'll give you an abbreviated version of the
Sure.
story. He lived there for 10 months, and nobody was allowed to see him. The lockdown was complete to families, to friends. A couple of times they brought him to a glass door, and I stood on the street and waved at him, and we talked on our phones. This went on for 10 months. He had private aid. I couldn't send him in. There was nobody to watch over this man who was paralyzed and in terrible need of help. And
Wow.
I tried to do the best I could, but the nursing home was in total chaos. And he needed somebody there. And when he died a week after. The very first place to get the vaccines were the nursing homes.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, we got the magic vaccine. It's going to make everything great. Hooray, hooray. Very first place, the nursing homes. So he was one of the first people to get this. 1 week later, he died. Now, his death was put down as a heart attack. Um, though his death was put down as a heart attack, I got the letter saying, "Hey, so sorry about your loved one. If you can just find a doctor to say he died of COVID, we'll pay your funeral. We'll pay the funeral."
Jeepers, girl. That's so disrespectful, too. It's just really disrespectful in my mind. Maybe some people, it didn't bother them, but I think that's so sick. And the more I find out about what went on through 2020, obviously what's going on with the vaccine, it's just really disgusting how these people think and act. And they have no human decency for anybody. But go ahead.
Well, I'd like to tell you about Patty Myers. She is a widow. She lost her beloved husband Tony due to this protocol, and she got that offer. It was kind of $9,000. They pay $9,000. Sometimes they paid more.
Wow.
And she said, I don't want to take a penny of their money. They're paying me to shut up. But she said, I know what I'm going to do. She had a brilliant inspiration. I'm going to make a documentary. And she took the $9,000 and she made a documentary about this protocol called Making a Killing. You can find it online. And she just did Making a Killing 2, which I haven't even seen yet. But there's
Mhm.
an example of somebody she's still in total shock every time I talk to her, and she starts talking about her husband, she breaks into sobs. I mean, this shattered hundreds of thousands of families. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people died from this
Yeah.
protocol, and nobody knows about it.
Can we go into, you made a statement earlier on in the interview. I do want to go into this that there was the ventilators, there was the remdesivir, but there was also a couple other items that were used
Yes.
to kill people. I want to just dive deeper into that if we could,
Thank you.
Stella.
Thank you. I wanted to go into that. Very important to realize that the hospitals were closed to visitors for the most part. There were
Right.
different states and different times, and some people managed to occasionally get in, but for the most part, family was not allowed in. And this is crucial. I mean, just ask yourself, if God forbid you were taken sick and right now had to call an ambulance and go to the emergency room, do you want your family there? Or do
Yeah.
you want to be totally alone when you're at your weakest and most vulnerable?
No.
Which way do you think is going to give a better outcome? Just
Yes.
simply the isolation from the family in and of itself was just absolutely horrifying for people's health. Just that, right? Then you put people on remdesivir, and there is a very, very important point about that I want to make, that I've now heard dozens and dozens of times. Remdesivir quickly got a very bad reputation. It was called run death as near. right? It got the nickname, right? The word got around. This stuff is bad news. And so people heard about it, and they were showing up in the hospital and saying, don't give me remdesivir. They were very clear in that. Guess what? They got it anyway. They got it anyway. It was given to them without their knowledge and without their consent. The families only found out after they died, and they went through the medical records. Which brings me to another point. There's so much to say. The federal government subsidized this particular protocol that we're going through, which was lethal. And at the same time, they took away your rights. They took away your rights. There was a waiver given to the hospital that patients didn't have any rights anymore. It's an emergency. They don't need their rights. So we're the government. This particular branch was CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. It's okay. You don't have to do informed consent anymore. That's how they felt free to give people remdesivir, who had specifically said no. Remdesivir, informed consent, right out the window. Nah, there's an emergency. Nah, we don't do that anymore. No, you can't have visitors anymore. That's a basic right of patients. Nah, we're not doing that. No, you're right not to be isolated, not to be put in a room totally. No, no, we're going to stick you in a room. No, it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
yeah, go on.
No, I just wanted to move into, because I believe this is correct, and if not, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You had family in the Holocaust,
Yes, yes.
and I'm trying to frame this the correct way. Do you believe that this is almost some way like this, that it's like they're sending these people, whether they voluntarily went because they were sick or they involuntary went to like a death camp and just died?
They had no rights once they were there. And that's an important part of it. And there are a couple of politicians who are taking an interest in this, such as the main one is Senator Ron Johnson. And he says, in Patty Meyer's movie, he said, patients gave up all rights when they went in the hospital. What do you call that? How do you sufficiently discuss the nature of this evil if you have no rights in a place where people are killing you? What is that? And you mentioned, yeah, as I'm talking about, my parents are Holocaust survivors, so I don't make analogies. And my grandparents were murdered in a camp, so I don't make analogies lightly. But this is a very profound evil that we have experienced and are still experiencing. So to take you through, now that you understand that you have no rights anymore, because there's what I call the magical waiver. Goodbye, Constitution. We don't have it anymore. So you were isolated. That was horrible for your health in and of itself. You were given remdesivir, often against your wishes. Then you were ventilated. Then, once you were ventilated, patients were agitated. This was horrible. They tried to rip it out. So what happened? They called in psychiatrists and said, "Oh, they're agitated. We have to sedate them." So then they were restrained. They were zip tied to the bed so they couldn't tear at their intubation or at their ventilator or BiPAP or whatever it was. They were zip tied to it. This was torture. This was torture. And they were sedated, and then they were given paralytics, they were given fentanyl, they were given all these different drugs, and they were given no food and no water. People would collect the bodies after they died, and people have lost 30 pounds, 40 pounds.
Wow. I didn't know any of that stuff. I did know that people were pulling out the ventilator rather, but I didn't hear anything else about the drugs and stuff with the psychiatry. Wow, that's really sick. I mean, the more I interview people, the more I speak to people on these subjects, the sicker it gets, and it's just really disgusting. I do want to go into your article in just a moment, but someone asked me, as far as an audience question, to ask you this. of why this topic is so important to you.
Oh, thank you for asking that. First of all, you mentioned, I love the truth.
Yeah.
I hate lies. I hate lies. And we've just been lied to these 3 years in ways that have been so. Let's go. Here's a lie. We knew from the beginning that the ventilators were deadly. There was a doctor about 2 weeks into this who made a video that he put up on YouTube saying, I just figured out we're killing people with the ventilators, right? So he figured it out, but he saw the people, who were frontline medical staff saw what was going on. But that video was yanked off YouTube. They continued to do this. They continued to ventilate people. About a week ago or 2 weeks ago, an article was published saying, and I forget where. I don't want to say because at the moment I don't remember. But
Yeah, no problem.
an article was published in a medical journal saying, "Oh, hey guys, we kind of goofed. Those ventilators, like we put you on, we thought they would help. It was actually like kind of a goof because really what happened is that the ventilators themselves gave people bacterial pneumonia, which we didn't treat. We didn't treat that pneumonia. And so the people died of the pneumonia it's called ventilation acquired pneumonia, I believe. And so we're just like, we're sorry about that, guys. We goofed, but like we were doing our best. So don't hold it against us. We're all cool, right?
Sounds like the Cuomo effect.
Don't mention that name in front of me. Do not
Yeah.
mention his name. That
Yeah.
man killed 15,000 people. He signed an order forcing nursing homes to take in COVID patients. He had Jacob Javits Convention Center outfitted as a hospital. Trump had sent a Navy ship hospital that was in the harbor, and Franklin Graham's church group had built a field hospital in Central Park. None of them were used. They were put in the nursing homes, and they killed 50,000 people, some of them staff, and he'll never see a day in jail. Never.
Finish, because I do want you to finish off what you were stating about your husband, and we'll start that story right from the beginning. So feel free whenever you're ready to start up about just the story about your husband.
Well, you mentioned Governor Cuomo, and I told you don't mention that name around me. But I will tell you the beginning part of what happened to my husband at the nursing home. Cuomo signed an order March 25th or 26th, which officially forced the nursing homes to accept COVID patients. As soon as he signed that, the nursing home my husband was in, which was run by very well-meaning people, it was run by the Archdiocese of New York. So they were Catholic and they took it seriously and they were ethical people.
Was this in the city? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, this was in the city. And
Okay.
so they wrote a letter to the families. I was so disgusted, I threw out the letter. I wish to God I'd saved that letter. But in essence, what they said was, we've been told by Governor Cuomo that we must accept COVID patients. We have tried to tell him we cannot safely do so. We don't have separate staff for COVID and non-COVID. We have no place to separately put COVID and non-COVID residents. We don't have, this was right at the beginning, we don't have gloves, we don't have gowns, we don't have masks, we don't have tests. There's no way we can manage this safely. We've tried to call the governor, but he refuses to take our call. Okay.
That's sad.
That's how it all began. So as soon as they put people in there, immediately people began dying. And it was totally chaotic, including staff began dying. And of course, staff couldn't even come in. They were home, there was no school. So staff was home with kids. It was wildly understaffed. People didn't want to come in and get sick and die. So, so it's not like if I called a nurse's station, I could get somebody to answer and find out what's going on with my husband. Eventually, I discovered that my husband was incredibly ill. He was dying from COVID, and he was on an oxygen tank. And through a miracle, we managed to get him to the hospital. That's unusual. That part of the story is unusual. He was admitted to a very good hospital in New York City on April 1st, 2020. I'm giving you these dates because it shows how early this was and how unnecessary our torture was. By this time, April 1st, 2020, Dr. Zev Zelenko, a very important man who had already, he was treating he was a very religious Jew in the Hasidic community in Muncie, New York, and there was a lot of people sick in that community. And he had found, so he was experimenting what works. He had put together already a protocol: vitamin D, zinc, quercetin, and hydroxychloroquine, which was a well-known drug for malaria that was one of the most widely used, safest drugs in the world. He already had discovered that. He was not losing patients with this, and I already knew of it. So when the doctor called me on April 1st, 2020 from the emergency room and said, your husband has COVID, I said, are you treating him with hydroxychloroquine? Take a guess what the doctor in the emergency room in New York City said on April 1st, 2020.
No.
Wrong. That's a surprise. Yes. Yes.
Wow.
We have a 5-day regimen of hydroxychloroquine and other medications that we give.
Wow.
After 1 day in the hospital, my husband was off the oxygen tank. After the 5 days, he was back to baseline, and he went back to the nursing home where he lived in isolation for 10 months. They knew, the best hospital in New York knew by April 1st, hydroxychloroquine worked. None of these people had to die, but the drug was effective. They didn't want that. So Governor Cuomo signed an executive order against hydroxychloroquine.
And when was that from the day that your husband was admitted? Go ahead.
I'm going to have to look up when he forbade the use of it. Pharmacies couldn't fill it. I think he said that they could still use it in the hospitals, but no hospital was going to use it because by that time the protocol had been put in place. Because my husband got it so fast, they hadn't had time to do all these maneuvers. And so he was affected. This was a man who was in a nursing home at this point for 6 years. He was a weak man with many problems, and he recovered to baseline with hydroxychloroquine and the other medications they were given him. None of this torture was necessary. None of it. And if you speak to doctors like Dr. Mary Bowden or Dr. Heather Gessling, who's now with the Wellness Company, people who were treating patients with COVID in their clinics, not just keeping them out of the hospitals, they didn't lose a patient. They didn't lose a patient. None of this agony was necessary. None of it. We had the knowledge.
Mary Bode, when we interviewed her, she was amazing. And I've talked to her about my issues, and she's given me some advice. I had the honor of speaking with her for over an hour. And I'm grateful for that. And, Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Malone, all these people are, telling the truth about COVID. But I do want to go into this, in talking about the COVID vaccine. Just because, you said your husband passed away from that. With that said, I've done, in interviewing a lot of these people about the vaccine, I've heard so many things that it's hard for me to grasp my brain around all this stuff. You've done a lot of research, I'm sure, on the vaccine. Do we know what's in it? I keep hearing this polysorbate 80, graphene oxide. Those are the two main things I'm hearing. Go ahead.
I don't want to put myself up as an expert on this.
Okay.
But I'm reading the same things you're reading. And I've seen even things about snake venom. There's all that may be in there. Whatever
Wow.
is in this vaccine is extraordinarily powerful to make, and there's so many questions about it. It seems like some of the lots of the vaccine were far more toxic than others. So if you got this batch, you were in deep trouble, and if this batch, you were okay. Maybe that was just, who knows what was in there? Maybe just, saline water. Who knows? It's not like these people have been honest with us. So we don't really know. But I read the same things you read, and I've seen the same visuals you have of autopsies of people who were vaccinated, and these enormous clots like this long that
Yeah.
the coroner takes out of the body, that nobody's ever seen these before. These are not naturally occurring phenomenon. What are they? What's causing them? So I don't want to come here as an expert on the vaccines. I'm just well read on it as
Right.
you are. And on the topic of vaccines, I do want to say, to tie it into the hospitals, they were so intent on and I was here in New York City being
Oh
a
God.
total, I was mourning my husband. My husband had died, and I wasn't allowed in anywhere. Everything was shut down to me because I'm not vaccinated. And I was
Right.
just totally isolated. I was living in this completely dystopian world, mourning my husband all alone. But the people who went into the hospital with COVID, and one of the first questions they asked was, "Are you vaccinated?" Those people were discriminated against.
Yeah.
They were hustled into this deadly protocol that we spoke of. Other people, maybe, for instance, if you were on regular medications and you said you were vaccinated, they kept up your regular medications. If you weren't vaccinated, they stopped your regular medications that you might need. There was just tremendous cruelty to the people who said they were unvaccinated. There are people collecting these stories. There's American Frontline Nurses, there's former Feds group, there's uh, Protocol Kills, there's different people, Halt Hospital Homicide, there's different groups. So at this point, hundreds and hundreds of stories have been collected. And that theme of cruelty and sadism has emerged that is deeply disturbing, of how these people were treated. Oh, you should die. You're not vaccinated. You deserve to die. You shouldn't be given oxygen. You don't deserve it. You're not vaccinated.
Yeah.
These kinds of sadistic treatment of dying people.
We heard that on TV by multiple people that saying, deny him health care. Jimmy Kimmel said it, I remember. And many other people on CNN and these other programs were saying it. Listen, they put the fear of God into a lot of people about the vaccine. And as you stated with your husband, it was that if you didn't get the vaccine, they were going to shut you down. And that was it. You couldn't go anywhere. Now, I was in Florida, so it was a different ball
It's
game
better.
down
It was
there.
better there. The whole world wanted to go to Florida.
But where you were, I have a good friend that still lives in New York City, and he's an actor over there, and he does some TV shows. And, between us and everybody listening, I'll never say his name because he's a good guy and I like him. He never got vaccinated. He got he had to buy two vaccine cards off market. He paid a lot of
Right,
money so he
right.
could keep doing these acting gigs over there because they would discriminate. He said he would go on the subway without a mask. And he said he would meet these girls that would go insane.
Yes.
And
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. There's still people who walk. There's still a sizable percentage of people walking around in the subway in masks in New York City now. Now, I wanted to tell you, this subject is very important to me, of the cruelty and the sadism toward the people in the hospital who are sick. And Dana Stevens I spoke to her, and she lost her mother, Rebecca. She's featured in that film Making a Killing that I mentioned. And Dana's mother had come in and said, "Don't give me remdesivir," and was given it against her will and without her knowledge. But she was Dana said when they found out she was unvaccinated, they were so cruel to her. She couldn't believe it. And she said, it's like, the mob mentality against the unvaccinated that you just described going on. She said, that was in the hospital too. That was the medical staff in the hospital with that mob mentality against the unvaccinated. How is this possible in America? What I say is that we've lived through a time when hospitals metastasized from houses, from places of healing into chambers of horror.
Yeah. It's a cult-like atmosphere in general. The whole damn thing is a cult-like atmosphere.
It is, and you know what? You asked me about the Nazi
Yeah.
analogy, which I'm hesitant to use, but which I do feel is appropriate. And when you talk about a cult and you bring up the mask, the basic uh, uh, crushing aspect of it was the dehumanization, walking around in the masks. You couldn't see, children were masked. What is it that it's like, like a snowflake, like our fingerprints, no human face. There's no two that are
Well,
exactly alike.
Stella, Fauci said at the beginning of March of 2020 that you shouldn't wear a mask. And he was telling the truth. And then he came back a month later and said, oh, we were saying that because of the hospital workers needed the mask and stuff. And then they were saying, well, you can wear any mask. Then they said, if you wear the cloth mask, they're no good. You got to wear the blue mask. Then the blue masks were no good. You should wear two of them, then or three of them, or the N95 or the KN95. What the hell is it? I mean, give me a break. Between us and everybody listening, and I've said this on the show before, I was the guy that was wearing the two or three masks. Listen, I was the guy down in Florida that was so brainwashed into this liberal hysteria from the death counts on CNN, watching them up and up and up and up. And the fear mongering that was going on was insane. That
Insane.
in Florida, I'm going out riding a bicycle in 95-degree heat with a mask on with no one around me.
Oh,
Now I
wow.
can laugh it off and stuff. But I was telling a girlfriend of mine, I was down in Florida a couple weeks back, and I just got back up here to the Northeast, and there was a woman, she was in her 60s, I would say ish, and she was riding her bicycle with the mask on. And I told one of the girls I'm friends with, and she started laughing. And I say, I don't laugh anymore because I feel sorry for these people. And I know the hysteria that they're living under till this day. And it's sad. It's not funny. And we have to get to these people because the only way we're going to win this fight on, preventing this horrific environments in the hospital again during 2020 and 2021, or preventing this vaccine nonsense that's still going on to this day, is if we get to these people that have been sucked in to this liberal hysteria and they haven't opened up their eyes like I have, like you have. And we've opened our eyes because we've been hurt. Your husband passed away. I've been injured by this vaccine. It's opened up my eyes to all this nonsense that I believed in the past. I talk about this on the program, Stella, that I was very to the left. I was an Obama guy. I hero worship these people. And now, from what happened in 2020 through 2022, I've been lied to,
Yes, you have.
hoodwinked, bamboozled, whatever word you want to use. I've been that. And the laughter of the doctors when I said I was vaccine injured, trying to
Oh,
put people like me on depression pills, on benzodiazepines. And I know women that have been my age or even a little bit younger in their 20s and their 30s that went on these pills because they trusted the doctor. They're so messed up right now. It's disgusting what this medical system has done between killing people, as what you said, due to COVID-19, or killing people that are suffering from vaccine injury. It's disgusting. And no one's going to go to jail for this. And they just want to push it under the rug. And it's disgusting. And I'll end there and I'll let you speak.
well, I want to congratulate you because you're a rare person. You might think, well, okay, I got vaccine injured, so that caused me to reevaluate everything. But there are plenty of people who've been injured and things. Oh, well, if I didn't get the vaccine, it would have been worse.
Give me a break.
Boost me
Listen, Stella,
harder.
I want to interject this, and I apologize for interjecting over you. These doctors in Rhode Island were telling me that the vertigo that I've got and the inflammation in my body that's sky high due to the COVID-19 vaccine would go away if I got a booster. And I almost did
Oh,
it because I was
oh,
that brainwashed.
yes.
And
That,
thank God I didn't do it because I
I,
would be,
oh.
God knows what I would be now.
I'm physically hurting when I hear you say that, but I do congratulate you that you had the independence of thought to say, wait a second, this guy might have the degree and the so-called credentials and the so-called expertise, but what he's saying is crazy. And I'm not going to do this to it's my body, and I'm not going to do this. And yet so many people went ahead and kept injuring themselves.
Well, the liberals like to say my body and my choice for, abortion, but they will not say it on the COVID-19 vaccine. I find that very funny that it's good for one thing, but it's not good for the other thing. So,
That's an excellent point, and the whole concept of bodily autonomy went right out the window during COVID, and we're living in a time when uh, big pharma, as it's come to be, it's taken its mask off, and we're all seeing how much power it has over our lives to, if they decide it's a lucrative uh, uh, growth field for them to get children to mutilate and castrate themselves in the hope of
yeah.
changing their sex. And there's a big, huge money to be made in that. Well, that's what's going to happen, and they're going to buy off the politicians and the media to do it. If they, the whole, you mentioned depression. How many people do you know? It's just an absolute disgrace.
Listen,
How
I
many
went to
people are,
Florida, in Florida, okay? When this happened in Florida, because I was so brainwashed down there. And it was the first shot was in March of 21. The second was the April, I think, 2nd or 3rd of 21. I'll never forget those dates because that was when my life changed. And I went in there and got the shot. 2 weeks later, I woke up and I was dizzy as anything, and it's never fully went away. I've gotten better, but it's never fully went away. Long story short, during April of 2021 to August of 2021, I went to the hospital in Florida 5 times.
oh my
And
gosh.
and you know what they told
Oh,
me? They said there's nothing wrong with you. You're fine. They said they done blood tests, they did echocardiograms, they did all this stuff. Nothing wrong. They said it's all in your head. It's all in my head. They said they say you should be on some kind of depression medication. You're depressed. You have
yes, yes,
anxiety.
yes. They push these drugs, and these are powerful drugs that have many side effects that are addictive. What they don't say, let's just, I don't know specifically how to treat your dizziness, but what they don't say about depression is, hey, what are you eating?
Right.
What are you eating? Forget the sugar, eat whole foods, eat plenty of protein, eat healthy fats, get out early in the morning, take a walk, get some sunshine, exercise, call a friend, join a church, start praying, meet good people. No, take this pill, take this pill, take this pill, take this pill. The whole pharmaceutical industry is a cult in and of itself.
Listen, after they started Stella with all the benzodiazepines, with the depression medication, I told them right at the beginning, I said, I'm not taking this shit. I took those depression pills one time, and I was talking to the woman that I'm friends with, and she told me, she said, try it, just see if I took it one
Right.
time. It felt like somebody was opening up my brain and like mechanically playing with it. I said, listen, I'm not taking this shit again. I'm sorry. I said, this is not going to work for me. These people are crazy. I went to Brown University, the elite institution, and And they had a long COVID clinic. I have a friend that lives right on Wall Street. Was friendly. I met him because he's in the financial sector. I had interviewed him quite a few times. I told him, still, I said, I'm going to tell these people when I go in there to this long COVID clinic that I had a vaccine injury. He said, don't do that. They're not going to believe you. I said, I don't give a shit. I said, I am going to tell the truth. And I'm not going to say I have long COVID because that's a lie. I never had COVID at that time. I just got COVID for the first time the Saturday before Easter of this year. And it was 8 days and I'm fine. Anyways, long story short, um, I went in there. I told the woman, I said, this happened 2 weeks after the COVID vaccine. I've talked to a lot of different doctors. They told me that that's when supposedly when the vaccine fully kicks in and this and that. You know what the woman told me? This is at Brown University infectious disease doctor. She said, you need to do talk therapy.
Oh, nice.
And I
Nice.
told her, I said, how is
Nice.
that going to help the
Nice.
vertigo though? She said, oh, get your third vaccine shot. I said,
Yes, that's the answer to it. That's a cult.
I
But
started laughing. I
she's
said,
getting paid. She's getting paid to do it. That's it. I do want to mention, you talked about Dr. Peter McCullough. For people, I want to mention the wellness company, TWC. I have no affiliation with them. So
mhm,
I'm not getting money for this, but I'm friends with some of Peter McCullough is one of the founders of this. Harvey Reich, who's been outstanding from the beginning. Richard Ammerling and Heather Gessling, they are the founding members of this medical unit, TWC, the wellness company, and they now actually are in Canada too. And they are treating people, through telehealth with vaccine injuries. And they're also, I want, you to know this and other people to know this. And also you mentioned people, they give out antidepressants and medications like candies. And a lot of them are inappropriate. A lot of them are addictive. A lot of them have side effects. And one of the things they want to do is work with you to help you de-prescribe. They want to de-prescribe. They want to get you off those unnecessary medications and into healthy lifestyle choices and supplements. So I do want to mention that as a resource for you and for people who
mhm.
are, as I say, I'm not getting paid a penny. I
No,
just,
we've interviewed Dr. McCullough on here 4 times,
yeah,
and
okay.
I'm grateful that he's came on this program as many times as he has. And I'm also grateful of what he's doing to tell the truth. And also, we spoke about the wellness company and the spike protein
Yes, he has a
and the spike
supplement for the spike protein
yeah, the
to
spike
come.
supplement that he's pushing out with the nattokinase. And, we've heard a lot of good things about that. I'm actually trying to look into that as we speak within
Good,
the next
good.
couple of days because I've heard a lot of great things. I'm working with a unvaccinated nutritionist who has been amazing. She's been better than the doctors that I've
Of
dealt with in the
course,
past two
because
two years.
food is medicine.
Yeah, and she's
Food
she's
is
been
medicine.
amazing.
And what
But
is she telling you to eat?
oh yeah, no, I've cleaned up my diet immensely. And it's everything is eating clean. Vegetables, fruit. As you stated earlier, Stella, it's all about what you put in your body. If you're eating McDonald's and all the gobbledygook crap that's in those foods, soda, all this stuff is not good for you, the processed foods. The chemicals, I mean, this is a whole different ball game, but the chemicals that
It's
they
the
put in
same
this
ball
food,
game. It's
yeah.
one big ball game that the medical establishment and, is just not protecting us.
Yeah.
And if you look at the food chart, it's the food pyramid. It's still crazy. It's still got all the
Yeah.
carbs and oh, no fats, no, you need fats to live. Your brain needs fats, it's still, we're being assaulted from all sides, which things that are destructive to our hearts, our minds, our bodies, our souls. We're we're at war.
Yeah.
There's no other way to look at it. We're at war.
I want to get to the last three questions on the interview. I brought up to you earlier on about people that I'm still seeing that are still living in this, liberal cultist mindset. And, I hate to use the liberal word, but it's strictly most of the people are in that mindset because they're in that political party, but it really should have nothing to do with political parties. It should be to do about your health. And these doctors are not looking out for you, as you stated. I don't trust any of these doctors anymore, period. I do my own research. I really dive deep into if somebody says something about a medication, what the side effects are, what this is, have people responded good to this or not. I'm not a pill popper. I don't believe in that nonsense. But regardless of that, we still have these people in our family and our friend structure that are still
Yeah,
in this
right.
liberal psychosis. How do we get to these people? Because again, we need to win this fight. And the only way rather we win this fight against the FDA, the CDC, the NIH, medical doctors, and this hospital complex that has been killing people left and right in our country the past 3 years is if we get everybody on board. These people, I thought we had a lot of these people because these people were against, and just to detour quickly, and I do want to get your answer on this, they were against big pharma when it was to do with the opioid crisis. Everybody was against big pharma with the opioid crisis. And now with the vaccines, it's like the opioid crisis never happened. And it's like we trust big pharma, we trust Pfizer, we trust Moderna.
And all these
It boggles
companies
my
that
mind. Go ahead.
right. It's mind-boggling. Like companies like Pfizer, which had been caught doing all kinds of
Right.
unethical things and had been massively, massively fined. But this time they're strictly on the up and up. Their word is gold this time. I don't know how we get to those people. Personally, what I do is I just give everybody as much gracious space as I can, and they'll
Yeah.
understand what they understand when they do it. And then I go out and I make new friends, such as yourself. I meet I meet new people and make new friends who are of a mindset that I'm going to be more comfortable with.
Yeah. It's just sad because we do need those people in our lives and really to move forward. But as we end, any last words for the audience? Maybe, there's a lot of liberals that listen to this that they're still in the hysteria. Any last words for those people, these people that are still pumping? And it's sad because I do have these people in my family directly that are still pumping the vaccines and have got 4 or 5 shots. And I do worry about them physically too. But, if you were talking to these people, what would you tell them as we end the interview?
I would say that, I wish you all the best. You've made choices for your health, and you're going to have to make more choices going forward. And I urge you to do the research. Don't depend on just the mainstream media because most of their income comes from advertising from the pharmaceutical companies. So reach out to alternative sources, talk to people with a different point of view. And we're 3 years into this, a lot of evidence has come in. And so there's a lot to look at and focus on living a healthy life. God gave you an immune system. Focus on strengthening and revitalizing your immune system and trusting in God that He gave you a body that's designed to heal.
Listen, we've interviewed people such as yourself and that believe in what I believe in. Stella, we've interviewed people on this program that have been from Johns Hopkins University and they're doing the circuit about how great the vaccine is. And this is back in 21 and 22. We interviewed the same person. I won't say his name, but he's been all over saying the vaccine is God's gift to the world. And I pushed back a little bit because I can't push back too much. Otherwise, we'll get censored. That was at that time. Now it's a little bit more of open air as far as what we can say on different podcasting platforms and on different radio shows, which I'm grateful for. But Estella, first of all, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate the work you're doing with the Brownstone Institute. Again, for people listening, follow her at Stella, STELLAPAULNY on Twitter. And she is at the Brownstone Institute, rather, excuse me, and writing many great articles. She's already put 2 out, and I'm sure there'll be many more to come. Stella, thanks so much for your time tonight. And hopefully next time we talk, it'll be another great subject. And hopefully we'll have some good news on this fight on this fight against the hospitals, the doctors, the Pfizer, Moderna, the vaccine pushes, and the list goes on and on. But I thank you for coming on, Stella.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing to bring people this part of the story and to your health.
All right. Thank you so much.